Hello, everybody. This is mid-pandemic Instagram feed. Today we're still looking at in-depth at the Fenske Friends show. I'm very excited about today's subject matter because it was one of those like once every 2 year, every 3 year experience when we went to hang this show. As Megan pointed out, I don't know if you want to explain it, Megan.
Just that Tim McGuire has been showing us paintings for a long time and bringing a lot of things in. And in the last, I guess, 10 months, he started bringing in these really great paintings, and we just didn't have a slot for him yet.
Yeah.
And so he was one of the major forces driving the inspiration for Fenske Friends being a show.
Yeah, and that, because you're hearing it from the horse's mouth, it was actually Megan's idea to do this show because she was so inspired by the new works coming in from Tim. And his work is really interesting, and it's kind of interesting to follow the arc of somebody who's under the influence of a teacher or an artist they're following, and then to see them step out on their own and see their own kind of fingerprint develop right before your very eyes. And that's what we have here. So Ben and Tim met Ben in their first year. In January of 2002, they were students at the Florence Academy, and they were placed into the same apartment with a guy named Martin. And apparently they worked all day at school, and then when they got home, Tim reports that Martin and Ben would wrestle. So I don't know. They were young men. I mean, 2002 is a bit of time ago. I mean, that's 18 years ago. I can't believe that. Anyhow, they also took turns sitting for each other and posing. And I know this because a lot of the work that I've looked at from Ben from 10 years ago were portraits of Tim. And he definitely knows how to paint Tim's portrait. And his initial reaction to Ben's work was that he was impressed with the emotion in his paintings, but it also inspired him. And this is probably the 4th or 5th artist that wrote back to us, when I saw Ben's work, I wanted to paint more, or I was inspired to paint. The freedom, but also the expression. So what I want to do really quickly is I want to explain a little bit about when, oh gosh, what's his name? The Russians?
The Tkachev brothers.
The Tkachev brothers. You'll see in our 2016 catalog on Ben, the Tkachev brothers did a lot of paintings in Russia of people out of doors. And it's almost like portrait or figurative work out of doors in sunlight. And you want to probably get up and show. This is one of several in a series. This is called Olive Grove, but Ben has been painting a figure under this olive tree every other year or so, so this might be the 3rd or the 4th. One of the early ones was just a very loose, blocked-in sketch that I think is one of the best as well. I mean, they're great. And just to note, Mark D'Alessio did 2 paintings of Tina under a tree. One of them is called Watercolor, which we just sold. It was the most major work he's done. And the other, I can't remember the name, it sold right away. It was Tina in a beautiful, fashionable dress, in a print dress under the olive tree. Really inspired, and I think Ben and Mark were inspiring each other to do that. But here is Tim's effort, which I thought was really interesting. He's painting up in Nova Scotia, and the blue sash and the blue eyes are glowing like the blue behind her. And it's almost like her limbs are equal to the tree, which reminds me very much of Ben, where the figure is in this dappled light, and she's very much part of nature. So I love these two, but what I want, this is still showing a heavy influence, subject matter and application, but I want to come over here, and these are the couple paintings that were trickling in. I think we got these as early as late last summer. Mm-hmm. I flipped out over them. In fact, I kind of earmarked this one for me, but I just got busy working, and lo and behold, the day we put it on Instagram, it sold to a really important collector out in Utah, who, by the way, if you're watching, you will be getting the painting soon. We wanted to record this before we ship it out. But here I see a little bit more of a distinct McGuire. I would start to call this the McGuire. It's a little more, you feel like the room is bursting out. You want more canvas. He's making all kinds of choices about color. It's a deep saturation of color versus what was probably right in front of him. It definitely, especially this room, reminds me of the Van Gogh that, of the interior of the room that he sent off to his painter friend to try to entice him to come. There's a lot of liberty taken in the shadows. He sees a lot of lavender, and he's also outlining things. And I see, you know, and this painting predates this. This painting, so in this show, when everyone brought their work here, Tim made an appointment while we were hanging the show, which isn't a great time to show me 12 new works or 15 new works. But I said, just unpack them and then go take a walk and we'll have a look. And I came in and we laid them out on the wall, on the floor, and I was taken aback. Like I'm gonna have an emotional reaction again, but I had an emotional reaction because it was a whole show. He brought me a whole show, even though he was gonna be one of 8 painters in this show. And you know, we were both deeply moved because each one was better than the next. And we decided on the spot to give him a show in July with probably another painter in the high season because the work was so good. He commanded the wall, even though all these other painters had brought works. This was one of the best ones. The very best one is actually at my house over my fireplace right now, which Megan is going to probably put a still up. Yeah. So one of the things I love about this work is look at all of this really rich color he sees in a shadow in the foreground. And he's using nature and inspired by nature. He's, I think, probably pretty accurate to nature here, but he's letting go of details that don't matter because the story is foreground, middle ground, background. And the story is about the color and the way the color is interplaying. And that's enough. It's gorgeous. And this painting was actually hanging, I don't know if you want to show it, hanging way back over there. And people would walk in the door and go right over to it. And this is going to be featured in the show in July. And I want to move over to this. This is another painting that came in with the interiors that, to me, almost, as well as the interiors, I'm sorry, I want to talk a little bit about what I was just saying. The highlights in some of these almost feel like a woodblock print. He's seeing things very abstractly, but accurately, because this is just vibrating, and it feels, this is actually a beautiful painting. This is from Maine or Nova Scotia?
I think Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. So this painting, though, again, he's taking a lot of liberties, but he's just putting very saturated color down in an abstract way, but I also have a very comfortable feeling. I think that the value shifts are right, the hues are right, and it's joyful. There's like a joyousness in these works. I also feel a little bit like Grant Wood as far as American painter influence, and also Hopper. A little bit less of the heaviness of Hopper, but definitely the Americana feeling. And then I want to move over here to talk about, this is, I think, really interesting. We're almost getting an abstract, most of this painting feels like abstract brushwork. Very, very sincerely observed color and light bouncing around, accurate enough in the drafting so that the boat sits in the ground, but this interesting cloud cover with then the blue on the top and the blue on the horizon. I find this painting a very delightful, almost like forward-looking contemporary landscape. And somebody's knocking on the window, hello. And so I love this picture. And I think it's like a new way of looking at a boat at a dock. And it's pretty hard when you're talking about that subject matter to have a new look at it. And when Tim is doing something interesting, and it's still happening right now. And then I want to talk a little bit about this painting, and it's right next to Ben Fenske. This is one of the first things that sold in our show. This is an absolutely gorgeous, again, very abstract, light bouncing around all between the subjects, or the objects. But often in Ben's, I used to say it feels like a flag, because he would have like a panel of dark, which is the background behind the white tablecloth, and there was usually some color, and there's often this chair, and we can see that Tim is a little bit influenced by Cezanne, but also very similar setup. In fact, I even see this jug in a lot of Ben's paintings. Oh, there's a different kind of jug in that one. Oh, yeah. You can see that. I don't know if that's going to work. And then I want to finish up by saying that this is a beautiful interior of Ben's house that Tim McGuire painted. But this was probably 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. It says
2017.
It says 2018. Okay. So that's probably 2 years ago. And I still feel like this is heavily influenced by Ben. It looks like a Fenske interior that's not quite, finished, or not quite a Fenske. Funny, all those fabulous penny paintings that sold.
The poppies?
The poppies that sold by Ben, there they are.
Yeah, I love that.
And this is probably a painting that Ben was making that was sitting there. This is his fireplace, and that's the door to his kitchen. I love the reflected light coming in. I like the abstraction of the shadow and the light. I love this painting. I mean, the green and the red and the blue is very elemental. This is a great painting, but I still feel that the two bedroom interiors show progress. There's also a lot more paint on those. They're a lot more saturated. This is a little more dry brush work. And that's just to show you the progress from being heavily influenced and a little tentative to being like really in it over there. And so I just want to say again that Tim McGuire also just sent us a little studio visit, a digital studio visit, after he was painting with Ben and Joe Altwer and Amy Florence. And who else was he doing?
Victor
and Kelly.
Rachel Personette was up there too.
Rachel Personette. They were all in Vermont, kind of luckily, during the breakout of the pandemic in March. I was actually even thinking of going up there, and I just held home, and I'm glad I did that. Anyhow, he has a little studio visit of what he brought back from that trip. Some works are in progress, some works are finished. You'll see a really cool painting of it's a river and a green field and a house, because we had just also gotten a report from Victor, and it looks to me like they were standing next to each other when they made the paintings. So maybe we'll finish showing you how they're all cross-influencing. But I'm just very excited about being able to witness Tim's transition into really having his own form of expression in this medium. And I'm really excited to have his show, which is on July 17th?
I think 18th.
July 18th, Saturday, July 18th. He'll be one of probably there'll be some other artists, because it's a high season group show. But I'm very, very excited about Tim's work, and have a look at, I'm sure Megan, you will finish it off. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think that's good.
Okay, that's it. Have a safe day, and stay tuned.